The cameras were rolling on what seemed like another ordinary Family Feud taping, but 55-year-old Linda Rodriguez sat at the contestant podium carrying a secret so devastating that when Steve Harvey finally uncovered it, the entire studio would be left speechless. What started as a simple game show would become the most emotional reunion in television history. But the truth Linda had been hiding for 15 years, nobody was prepared for that. It was a Friday afternoon at the Family Feud studios in Atlanta. Steve Harvey was in his element, that perfectly tailored navy suit catching the studio lights, his characteristic energy filling the room with laughter. The Rodriguez family from San Antonio was competing against the Johnson family from Memphis, and everything was proceeding exactly as planned. Standard questions, standard answers, standard entertainment. But Linda Rodriguez wasn't really there to play games. She sat at the edge of her family's podium, her hands trembling slightly whenever Steve looked her way. Her nephew Carlos had practically forced her to come, insisting that maybe being on her favorite show would help her find some peace. Linda had agreed reluctantly, but only because she hoped that somehow, somewhere, Jessica might be watching. During the pre-show family introductions, Steve noticed something different about Linda immediately. While her family members were animated and excited, Linda seemed to carry a weight that made her shoulders slump slightly. When Steve asked about her family, she had hesitated for just a moment too long before saying, I had a daughter. Steve had asked gently. She doesn't consider me her mother anymore, Linda replied, her voice barely audible. Steve's comedian instincts told him to move on, to keep the energy light, but something about the pain in Linda's eyes made him pause. In 40 years of reading people, he'd developed an instinct about grief that ran deeper than everyday problem. The game began normally enough. The Rodriguez family was holding their own, answering questions and scoring points. But during the third round, when the category was things that make a mother proud, Linda's turn came up and everything changed. Steve announced the question, name something a daughter might do that makes her mother proud. Linda stared at the board, but she wasn't thinking about survey answers. She was thinking about Jessica's high school graduation, where she had sat in the audience watching her daughter refuse to acknowledge her presence. She was thinking about the wedding invitation that never came. She was thinking about the grandchildren she'd never met. Graduate college, Linda finally answered, her voice cracking slightly. Graduate college, Steve repeated, but he was watching Linda's face carefully. Survey says. The board revealed it was the number 2 answer, but Linda hadn't smiled. If anything, she looked like she was about to cry. Steve set down his cards and walked closer to the Rodriguez family podium.
Mrs. Rodriguez, you okay over there?
Linda looked up at Steve, and for the first time since the cameras started rolling, her carefully maintained composure began to crack. She did graduate college, Linda whispered, summa cum laude. I wanted to be there so badly, but what, sweetheart? But she told me I wasn't her real mother, and that real mothers weren't invited. The studio fell completely silent. This wasn't game show drama. This was real, raw pain that had been carried for years. But what happened next would prove that some truths are too big to stay buried forever. Steve Harvey had hosted thousands of hours of television, but something about Linda's words hit him like a physical blow. The phrase real mother carried implications that went far beyond a simple family argument. This was about identity, about secrets, about the kind of pain that destroys families from the inside out. Linda, Steve said softly, abandoning all game show protocol. How long since you've talked to your daughter? 15 years, Linda replied, tears now flowing freely. She was 16 when she found out, 16 when she told me I wasn't her real mother and that she never wanted to see me again. The audience was holding its breath. Steve's warm brown eyes filled with concern as he processed what Linda was telling him. His characteristic hand gestures stilled, and he placed his palm forward in that distinctive wait, hold-on gesture that had become part of his signature hosting style. Found out what, Linda? Linda's voice broke completely as she answered, that I adopted her when she was 3. That her biological parents, that her real parents died in a car accident, and I wasn't brave enough to tell her the truth about where she came from. The confession hung in the air like a prayer. Steve's mouth opened slightly in that expression of shock and empathy that had endeared him to millions of viewers. Behind the scenes, producers were frantically trying to figure out what to do. This wasn't part of any script. You raised her from when she was 3 years old? Steve asked. From the day after her parents' funeral. Linda nodded. She was so small, so scared. She kept asking for her mom and daddy, and I didn't know how to tell her they weren't coming home. So I just tried to become her mama instead. Steve's expression showed the profound impact of Linda's words. His bald head caught the studio lights as he shook it slowly, his thick mustache framing a mouth that struggled to find the right response. But the most shocking revelation was still coming, and what Steve discovered next would change everything. Linda thought she knew about her daughter's disappearance. Steve walked back to center stage, but instead of continuing the game, he did something unprecedented. He called for the studio lights to be raised and addressed the entire audience. "Ladies and gentlemen," Steve announced, his voice carrying that gravity that transformed entertainment into ministry. "Sometimes we stop being a game show and start being a family. Linda Rodriguez has been carrying a pain for 15 years, and I have a feeling that there's more to this story than we know." He turned back to Linda, his brown eyes intense with determination. "Linda, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. In those 15 years, have you tried to find Jessica?" Linda nodded through her tears. "I hired investigators. I found her address, her phone number, her workplace. But every time I tried to reach out, I remembered what she said, that I wasn't her real mother, that I had lied to her about who she was." Steve's hand shot up in that distinctive stopping gesture, palm forward, fingers extended. "Hold on, Linda. Hold on right there. Something about this doesn't sit right with me." He pulled out his cell phone, and the studio watched in complete silence as Steve made what appeared to be a work call. But his expression grew more serious with each passing moment. "Yes, this is Steve Harvey from Family Feud," he said into the phone. "I need some help with a situation here. I need to locate someone. Jessica Rodriguez would be about 31 now, originally from San Antonio." The audience could only hear Steve's side of the conversation, but his face told a story of growing excitement mixed with concern. After several minutes, Steve hung up and walked back to Linda with an expression that was part amazement, part devastation. "Linda," Steve said slowly, his voice thick with emotion, "I just spoke with someone who's been looking for you for 15 years too." Linda's family gathered closer around her. Her nephew Carlos took her hand. The audience leaned forward in their seats. "What do you mean?" Linda whispered. Steve's voice grew gentle, almost reverent. "Your daughter Jessica, she's been trying to find you too. She's been carrying her own pain all these years, thinking that you gave up on her because she was angry." The studio buzzed with confused murmurs. Linda looked completely lost. "I don't understand," Linda said. Steve took a deep breath. "Linda, Jessica never hated you for adopting her. She was angry because she thought you didn't trust her enough to tell her the truth about her parents. But she spent 13 years regretting the way she handled it. She spent 15 years wanting to come home and apologize. But the most powerful moment was still coming. And what Steve revealed next would heal a wound that had been bleeding for 15 years. Steve's expression shifted to one of profound emotion as he continued. "Linda, there's something else. Something that's going to change everything you think you know about that day 15 years ago." Linda was barely holding herself together, her hands shaking as she gripped the podium. "Jessica didn't leave because she didn't love you," Steve said, his voice growing stronger as he delivered what he clearly considered life-changing news. "She left because she was scared that if you had told her one lie about her identity, maybe you had told her other lies too. She was 16 and confused, and she made a terrible decision that she's regretted every day since." Steve paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. "But here's what you need to know, Linda. Jessica has a daughter, your granddaughter, and she named her Linda." The studio erupted. Not in applause, but in the collective gasp of 300 people witnessing something sacred. Linda collapsed into her chair, overwhelmed by emotions she had suppressed for 15 years. Steve reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his cell phone again. "Linda, I'm going to do something that I've never done in 40 years of television. I'm going to make a phone call and I want you to listen." The studio held its breath as Steve dialed a number. "Jessica?" Steve's voice carried across the silent studio through his microphone. "This is Steve Harvey from Family Feud. I'm here with someone who loves you more than life itself and has been looking for you for 15 years. There was a pause, and then a voice came through Steve's phone speaker, audible to everyone in the studio. "Is my mom there?" Linda's sob could be heard throughout the studio. "Jessica? Baby, is that really you?" "Mom?" came the voice through the phone, breaking with 15 years of suppressed emotion. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I said those terrible things. You are my real mother. You're the only mother I've ever really known." Steve held the phone between himself and Linda, his eyes now filled with tears that matched those streaming down his dark cheeks. His hand remained in that protective, stopping gesture, as if he were physically holding back 15 years' pain. "Baby," Linda sobbed into the phone, "I should have told you the truth from the beginning. I should have trusted you with the story of how much your parents loved you before they died. I know, Mom. I figured it all out years ago. I understand now that you were trying to protect me. I understand that you became my mother not by accident but by choice. And that's more powerful than any biology. But what happened next broke every rule of television and created the most powerful moment in game show history." Steve looked at the production team, then back at Linda, then made a decision that would be talked about for years to come. "Jessica," Steve said into the phone, "where are you right now?" I'm actually in Atlanta," came the reply. "I flew here when I heard Mom was going to be on your show. I've been sitting in the hotel across the street, trying to get the courage to come to the studio." Steve's expression transformed into that characteristic look of amazement that his fans had come to love. His eyebrows raised, his mouth opened slightly, and he shook his head in disbelief. "You've been across the street this whole time?" "I've been watching the show on the hotel TV, hoping I'd get to see her face one more time." Steve turned to the production team and said something that would become legendary in television history. "Stop the game. Get security to escort Jessica Rodriguez from the hotel across the street to this studio. Right now." The audience erupted in applause, but Steve held up his hand in that distinctive stopping gesture. "No," he said, "we're not applauding yet. We're praying. We're praying that 15 years of separation is about to end, and that two women who love each other more than life are about to remember what family really means." 20 minutes later, the studio doors opened and a 31-year-old woman with Linda's eyes and her father's smile walked onto the Family Feud stage carrying a 3-year-old little girl. Linda stood up from her contestant podium, and for a moment, mother and daughter just looked at each other across the stage. 15 years of separation, 15 years of regret, 15 years of love that had never died, all contained in that single moment of recognition. Then Jessica spoke the words that would heal both their hearts. "Mom, I'd like you to meet Linda Rodriguez, your granddaughter." Linda collapsed, not in grief, but in overwhelming joy. Steve caught her, supporting her as she processed the magnitude of what was happening. Her daughter had named her child after her. Despite 15 years of separation, despite all the pain, Jessica had honored the woman who raised her by passing her name to the next generation. The reunion that followed wasn't just emotional, it was transformative for everyone who witnessed it. Steve helped Linda walk across the stage to where Jessica stood with little Linda. When they were close enough to touch, Jessica spoke first. "Mom, I need you to know something. I need you to know that even when I was angriest, even when I said those terrible things, you were always my mother. Biology doesn't make mothers, love makes mothers. And you loved me like your own from the moment you met me." Linda reached out with trembling hands to touch Jessica's face. "Baby, I should have told you about your biological parents sooner. I should have told you how much they loved you, how they would have been so proud of the woman you became. "You did tell me," Jessica replied. "Every time you stayed up with me when I was sick. Every time you came to my school plays. Every time you believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. You told me every day what love looks like." Steve, standing nearby with tears streaming down his dark cheeks, began removing his navy suit jacket. This ritual, which had become his signature gesture in moments of profound connection, took on even deeper meaning in this moment. "Ladies," Steve said, his voice thick with emotion, "this jacket has been with me through thousands of shows, thousands of families, thousands of moments of human connection. But today, it belongs with a family that just remembered that love is stronger than time, stronger than anger, and stronger than any secret." He draped the jacket around both women's shoulders, encompassing them in the symbol of protection and honor. "This is what family looks like," Steve announced to the studio and the cameras. "This is what forgiveness looks like. This is what happens when two people choose love over pride, connection over separation, and healing over hurt." Little Linda, who had been watching the adults with the wise eyes that children sometimes have, reached up to Linda's face and said, "Are you my other grandma?" Linda's response broke every heart in that studio. "Baby, I'm your grandma, who has been waiting her whole life to meet you." The applause that followed lasted over 10 minutes. But more than applause, it was a celebration of the power of family to heal itself, the power of love to overcome time and distance, and the power of forgiveness to do what had seemed permanently broken. Later, after the cameras stopped rolling and the audience went home, Steve Harvey sat with the Rodriguez family in his private office. Jessica explained that she had spent years trying to understand her own reaction to learning about her adoption. She had gone to therapy, researched her biological parents, and eventually understood that Linda had made every decision out of love. "I realized that my biological parents gave me life," Jessica told Steve. "But my mom gave me everything that made that life worth living." Steve learned that Jessica had become a social worker specializing in adoption and foster care, helping other families navigate the complex emotions around non-biological family structures. She had dedicated her career to honoring both her biological parents and the woman who raised her. Linda, meanwhile, had spent 15 years volunteering at children's hospitals, pouring her maternal instincts into caring for sick children whose own parents couldn't always be present. She had never stopped being a mother, even when she thought she had lost her daughter. The jacket Steve gave them that day now hangs in Jessica's living room, next to photos of 4 generations of women: Jessica's biological mother, Linda, Jessica, and little Linda. It serves as a reminder that family is not defined by genetics, but by the choice to love unconditionally. 6 months after the episode aired, Jessica and Linda started a nonprofit organization called Chosen Family, which helps adoptive families navigate the conversations around identity and belonging. They speak at conferences together, sharing their story of separation and reunion, helping other families avoid the years of pain they experienced. Steve Harvey often cites this episode as the moment he fully understood his role as more than an entertainer. "That day taught me that sometimes the most important thing you can do is help people find their way back to love," he has said in interviews. "Linda and Jessica taught me that family isn't about perfection. It's about choosing each other again and again, even when it's hard." The episode, when it aired, became one of the most watched Family Feud episodes in the show's history, not because of drama or controversy, but because viewers recognized something universal in Linda and Jessica's story: the fear of not being enough, the pain of words said in anger, and the healing power of forgiveness freely given. Little Linda, now 4 years old, calls her grandmother Abuela Linda and her mother Mama Jessica. She knows the story of how her family found each other again, and she knows that love is powerful enough to bridge any gap, heal any wound, and restore any relationship that's meant to be. The secret that destroyed Linda's heart for 15 years became the foundation for a love that was stronger than ever. Sometimes the truth we're most afraid to tell is the very truth that sets us free. And sometimes the daughter who breaks your heart by leaving is the same daughter who heals it by coming home. Share this story. Make sure it's never forgotten, because somewhere, There's another Linda carrying the weight of words said in anger, not knowing that forgiveness is waiting just a phone call away. Sometimes love really is stronger than time.